All right, now that my grandfather clock has stopped chiming the hour, we'll go ahead and get started. We are recording this session, and thank you all so much for being here. And thank you to our librarian team who will be presenting on the resources that are available for online instructors through the library. So we'll go ahead and get started. Take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Otto. I'm a Scholarly Communication Librarian with K-State Libraries. I'm presenting today with my direct colleague, Emily Finch, who's also in my office as the Scholarly Communication and Copyright Librarian. I believe we were also supposed to present with Adriana Gonzalez, who is the head of academic services for the libraries. Unfortunately, she will not be joining us today, as well as Jason Coleman, head of K-State's library user services. All right, thank you all for joining us today. So why are we here? We're going to be talking about resources for online instructors that the library can offer. But we're really going to, of course, we're going to focus on open educational resources. What does that mean? As well as some of the subscribed material that the libraries can offer that you can access, you and your students can access for free. How to share those educational resources, foundations for copyright and sharing. This is going to be important to really set the basics of OER. And then the library instructional reference services, which we'll just go over in terms of like how to find help if you need it. All right. So before we get into what OER is, let's focus on the why. What you see in front of you is the Consumer Price Index since 1998. You can see that there's been a number of things that have fallen below the index, but if we go ahead and look up towards the top, we see college tuition and fees, yay. And then right below that is going to be college textbooks. What's interesting though is, since around 2015, instead of seeing this huge kind of rising, instead of it rising constantly, we're finally seeing it level out. And that is primarily due to, well, there's a number of reasons for this. Students may not be purchasing textbooks. They may be finding other ways to access it. But some of this is caused by the adoption of open educational resources really gaining traction and saving students money. This is helping stabilize the textbook market. This is data pulled directly from from National College Students surveyed in 2018. We'll talk about this, the Open Alternative Textbook Initiative that we have here at K-State. This is an initiative geared towards helping instructors, faculty to create, adapt, or adopt OER or alternative resources to really help save students money. But like I said, we'll go over to that a little bit more detail later. So 72% of K-State students did not purchase or rent required textbook for the spring 2019 semester. And then 20% of K-State students did not purchase 3 or more required textbooks for the spring 2019 semester. To save money for textbooks, students reported 43% skipping meals, 31% reported taking fewer courses, and 30% did not just take a trip home. This is impacting the lives of our students, and it's also impacting K-State. If students are not taking courses because they cannot afford the material, this is a problem. And the students or universities benefit from open or alternative textbook options. So there's no difference in learning efficacy between open and commercial textbooks, with a 29% lower withdrawal rate from courses with open. We'll be fleshing out this data here at K-State in the coming years. And we're excited to go ahead and share that information with you when it comes out. So what is OER? Well, we define OER by the 5 R's. Those are retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. The term open comes very much from a place of this kind of intermingling between librarianship and copyright. The term, like, what does it mean to be open? Well, it means that even though something might have copyright, folks have licensed it in such a way or given permission to use for your items to be used in such a way that you don't have to worry about so much asking for permission anymore. As long as certain things are met, such as giving an author attribution or not using the resource to make a profit, you're free to use these resources in a wide variety of ways. And this is why it makes it so powerful. Just imagine you creating a course or you finding a course on the open web, and without even having to request permission, you're able to start using it in your class, building on top of it, building question and answer sets, building tests, anything like that. And if you release those yourself to the open, now we have whole course shells that can just easily be picked out and used in a classroom. This is a little bit of a finer definition from the Hewlett Foundation. OERs are teaching and learning research material in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no-cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. Benefits, well, we've already gone over some of those, but free online access, customizable, more academic freedom for faculty, day one course access, no more waiting for financial aid disbursements, no more anxiety. As soon as the student starts, they're able to pick up that resource, start using it, download it, print it out, whatever they want without fear. Perpetual access, this material can be saved forever. If it's licensed openly, that open license cannot be revoked. Equal access, and then ultimately student success. For OER permissions, now we're getting into the finer points. We will be talking about copyright in more detail later, but I just did want to go ahead and go over some of the basics. So focusing on all rights reserved versus some rights reserved. All rights reserved is what it means, or what it is what it says. That the copyright owner does not give any permission whatsoever. They'll have anybody who wants to use this material that falls under the rights under copyright would have to contact the author or creator. But CC, Creative Commons, some rights reserved, meaning that the creator or author keeps some of those rights, but in other times, like, hey, as long as you meet these very minimal threshold of like attribution, you're able to use it. And you might find very similar things or a very similar environment if you're searching for academic research or journal articles. Academic publishing has changed quite a bit over the years, and open access has gained a substantial foothold in that as well. But if we go to illustrate that point, let's go ahead and take a look at two journal articles. This first one is from an Elsevier journal, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. Everything has to go through Elsevier. This, however, this next one from the Public Library of Science, PLOS is a large open access publisher, but they've licensed their material through Creative Commons CC BY. So as long as you give attribution to the authors, you're free and able to do whatever you want. Like, there's no more paywall. There's no more libraries will no longer be like, libraries don't have to subscribe to PLOS in order to gain access to this material. And so this research is no longer just available to those who could afford it, but it's available to the entire world. So copy, redistribute, adapt, anything that you'd like, as long as you give attribution. All right. So I'd like to go ahead and stop for a second, take a breather, and seeing if we have any questions. Yeah, something from chat. Okay, it's just Laura. Does anybody have their hand raised? Anybody want to ask anything?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, I mean, I've never really heard about OER before,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, like, was I using it or not, like, already? Like, is this some kind of just, how long did it exist for? Is it some kind of, I don't know, database that we have to request, like, in the future if I teach, or like, what? I guess I don't necessarily understand the whole concept of OER.
Okay, great. Well, there's no database, so I should say there's multiple databases that house OER, and they're popping up. More are popping up every day for very discipline specific, and it could range into statewide, regional, or even national repositories. And it could very well be that you've been using OER without even knowing it.
Okay.
If you found just material online that might have had a Creative Commons license, then that's OER. Yeah.
For example, like if I'm looking for an article, let's say through K-State libraries, and it says of it, if mine and I don't have to pay for it, is it OER or is it because through K-State?
It could either be, it could be either or. So you have to look at the specific license. So the library's job is to make information finding seamless. So libraries don't necessarily want you to know whether or not something is open or not.
Okay.
But so you have to look at the open access journals could very well be right next to closed access, and even within same journals, if they have a what they call a hybrid business model, there could be within the same journal there could be open access articles, and right next to it it could be a subscription article that you can only get access to with subscription.
Okay. So. Sorry. So yeah, one last question. I don't know if it's like necessarily pertain to this or not, because like what I realized over the last few years of just teaching, that a lot of undergraduate students don't know or have no idea that they can actually request articles or some of the books, that they can actually go through K-State libraries and just find things that they need there. Is it something that they're not supposed to know? It's just somehow not, because I always tell them and show them like, hey, because when they need to write papers, I usually show them like, this is how they can get the information. Or
Jason Cole, yeah, we want to spread this information as far and wide as possible. So it's just a case that students just sometimes don't know that they can access. They don't, it's hard to, yeah. So every couple of years we have to retrain, just get that information out, talk about interlibrary loan. But yeah, Jason Coleman will talk a lot more about that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, so I want to cover these in just really quickly, and then just so I have time for our other co-presenters. Yep, so for OER in your field, yes, I'm going to go ahead and focus on that for finding OER in this section. Are open license and Creative Commons synonymous? No, yeah, so the short answer to that, Kristen, is yes. They are synonymous. Creative Commons licenses are what we call open. However, there are more open licenses than others. So within the Creative Commons licenses, some are more open than others. And so the less restrictions, the more open it is. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you go with a Creative Commons license, that's a little bit more restrictive. But you just have to match the license with your use. Yep. Yeah, and Emily mentioned Merlot, which we'll talk about. Okay, so hopping right back in for finding OER, there's a lot, as I said, there's so many different repositories out there, and the offerings are extensive and growing. Among this list, there are going to be even commercial OER providers. So Lumen Learning, OpenStax, and these are nonprofits that are developing this in conjunction with other with other partners. OpenStax is run out of, I believe, Rice University. Okay, So one of these is going to be Open Oregon, is going to be an example of a regional repository that Oregon is, or not regional, state repository that they've stood up. OpenStax, which I've already mentioned. Transitioning for a second, let's go ahead and dive into, while we're on OpenStax, let's go ahead and start talking about our own offerings here. Actually, fast forward. Sorry. It's like I was going to talk about something and it's like, let's go ahead and wait until that later. Okay. So OpenStax, in addition to just the books, they do have a lot of the supporting material as well for PowerPoint slides, structure solutions manual, syllabus, Canvas, concept. So they're aiming to have that more complete package. Now, there we go. Then I want to switch back over. Okay. So talking about OpenStax and talking about the idea of open, we have, if we go ahead and talk about, I think biology is in here. So we have open educational resources published through Kansas State. So this is going to be our publishing and print, New Prairie Press. We have principles of biology in here. Just have to find out where. There we go. So this Principles of Biology book and other material, this was done by K-State authors, but as a foundation for all of that, they used an OpenStax textbook. So we go here, CNX. This is from OpenStax, so this is a modified OpenStax book that we've are distributing to help make one of our classes or a series of classes open. We also house other OER, and from Brian Lynchfield out of Human Nutrition. He's one of our co-founders for the Open Alternative Textbook Initiative. He's created his own. But even the ones that are housed within locally here at K-State, it's now pulled into a variety of different repositories. And so this is Open Textbook Network. So the Open Textbook Network, where K-State is a part of it, and they run the Open Textbook Library. So this is more of a general repository for OER, but which I really like, because in addition to everything being mostly open, you're also going to find reviews. Once you dive into a particular book, it gives you information about it, the license, and yeah. And so if you find that if you're on Open Textbook Library and you find a book that you really like, recommend going ahead and reviewing it. And OER should be reviewed the same way as you would review a commercial textbook. There shouldn't be too much of a difference, if at all. Okay. Moving back. Okay. So LibreText. LibreText is another repository that focuses on like full shell courses. LibreText is run out of UC Davis and was an awardee for the Department of Education's OER grant that was allocated by Congress for $5 million. And they're really trying to look at what is a 21st century textbook going to look like. And they're doing some really cool stuff. We don't support this here at K-State just yet, but we will in the very near future. For vocational training, Skills Commons is a way to go. If you want to go ahead and try to capture a wide variety of content, Oasis would be a resource for you. Google, if you go into Google search tools, you can go ahead and find usage rights and find openly licensed material through there. This is great even to tell your students if they're trying to find images or other open content. It's just an easy way to introduce to OER. You can find openly licensed material directly through Creative Commons. We're finally back on the Open Textbook Library. Okay. And then, yeah, and then Merlot is a great one too that Emily mentioned. And that's run out of California, so let's go ahead and do that. yeah, for a wine producing state, maybe Merlot wasn't the best way to name it. So this is also a really good mega search that you can use. Okay, so moving on to using OER. So once you're finding, like, using OER and finding OER go hand in hand because you're really trying to create like the best resource for your students. And so the great advantage of OER is you can make Frankenstein material that just fits really well with what you're trying to teach. You can rearrange chapters, you can change chapters to focus on precisely the scope of your course. We'll talk about this in a second, but for the framework that we like to go ahead and use to see if you can use content within your courses or other within your own work, it's really easy to use with Creative Commons because all we have to do is stop at number 2. Does it have an existing license that covers my use? Bingo, Creative Commons. So for help customizing and creating OER, there's OER to help you create OER. Great resources are available through the Rebus community, the Open Textbook Network, and others if you can find it. But those are Pressbooks as well, and that we're going to talk about in a sec. Okay, Elizabeth, the content available through the library. Okay, not sure if I caught that one, that question. Okay. All right, so this is talking about Pressbooks, which we'll dive into in a second. I also want to transition to leave other time, more time for my co-presenters as well. So let's just dive in really quickly. So Pressbooks is a textbook or it's a book authoring tool that we support here at K-State that we subscribe. So there's no cost to users, there's no cost to students, there's no cost to faculty who want to create these. We actually have more books than this, but some of them are hidden just so they can provide, they don't want them available openly through the catalog. They just want to provide access to their students. But yeah, and these resources can take a wide variety of forms. As you can see, we have 2 very large books for unmanned aircraft systems, which have been popular. And then I wanted to go ahead and show these 2 books. So this is what a student sees. All they have to do is say, like, okay, you distribute this one link to your course, then you hit read book, and it hops right in. It's title page, main body, and it's broken down by chapter. Now they are working on Canvas integration, so students won't even have to go to a website anymore. And they can just first stay in Canvas once they're plugged in. They're able to have access to the resource and hit the ground running. Another great part of this, though, is its ability to download in various formats. So you can take it in PDF, EPUB, and MOBI, which are ebook formats, which are a lot more open, they're less proprietary than, let's say, the iBook creator format. So they can download this and read this offline. So for any students who are struggling to, if they don't have good internet, they don't always have to be on the internet to access their book, which is incredibly important. All right, and so that's all I have for this, for Textbook 2.0 and the Open Alternative Textbook Initiative. The power of open, we can let the numbers speak for themselves. So for a $500,000 investment, have $5 million saved to date by K-State students, and that's from 2013. And then from last fiscal year alone in FY19, we saved students 1.57 million. And then that translates into over 17,000 textbooks not purchased. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I think Jason Coleman is up next.
That's correct. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully you are all now seeing a slide that has many different names of educational resources. Is that true, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good, Jason.
All right, good. Okay, so We want to emphasize that in this juncture of time, it is a great opportunity to explore open educational resources. We've always promote those and support those, but especially now, we encourage you to make it as easy and convenient as possible for your students to access educational content, and making an open textbook, adapting an open textbook is a wonderful way to do that, as Brian has illustrated. At the same time, we do have a number of subscribed resources that we purchase using the library's budget. And I've listed a few of the big packages that we've purchased. And HathiTrust, we haven't really purchased that, but we are a member. So we contribute money to HathiTrust and are partners with that organization, which is focused on a preservation platform for book content and other types of content too. So there's a lot of great resources here, and this is just a small sample. The way that we recommend going about discovering what the libraries has purchased and some of the other free resources that we strongly recommend using, there's several ways to do that, but the primary one is to go to our website, library's homepage, and you'll see a search it box, very conspicuous near the top of that page. Search It is our discovery tool. It's a wonderful tool. I always am cautious, though, to make sure that everyone realizes that it's not a panacea, and it does have some limitations. One of those limitations is it doesn't index absolutely everything that we subscribe to, but it does index or have some indexing information about a large amount of resources that we do have access to. So I would encourage you to start there. If you delve into Search It, which I hope all of you have done, and if not, encourage you to play around with it, you will discover very quickly that there's so much that you'll want to take advantage of the facets that Search It provides in order to limit down. I strongly recommend starting off with a very broad search. I've been doing this for about 20 years as a reference librarian, and I've discovered that the difficulties a lot of people, including myself, run into when they're searching is that they're putting in too many words. And they're also very dedicated and passionate about certain words. And it's important to be flexible and realize that the word that you love and that you learned may not be the word that all other scholars are using across time and across geographical locations. And so be flexible. But when you do pick a word or try different words, start broadly, and then use these facets to help slice and dice your result set. Here I've done a search for the word mitosis, and you'll see that at the top here, we had 238,095 results, a lot of results. You can start slicing through that in a couple of key ways. One is limit to full text online to make your result set only show those things that are immediately available online, if you wanted to do that. Also, you can click on Show More under Resource Type, and you'll then have a list of some major formats, including books. So if you were to select full text online and then click Books, voila, you've got ebooks. And those are most of the ones you'll find in that list. Here's a small set of the ones that would come up if you were to do that, are books that we have purchased access to from major platforms. These are books, though, that you're free to share with your students. These probably wouldn't be ones that you would want to feel free to adapt and modify because they're copyrighted. They have copyright. So it's really crucial to look at the licensing that is attached to whatever materials you are going to want to use. And Emily is our copyright expert, and she would be a great resource to talk to about what are you allowed to do with this particular resource. And she will immediately look at the license and help give guidance on what the license is saying and what opportunities you have with that material. So lots and lots of books that you can discover. In addition to using Search It as a discovery tool, our database directory is another essential resource, and that is also linked directly from our homepage right below the Search It box. If you click the databases link, you then will go to a set of 300 databases. We list those alphabetically You can browse by the first letter of the name of the database. You can also use the all subjects or all tags or the vendor if you know that. And there's also a search box that you can use to search the descriptions and names of the databases. I just wanted to illustrate that we have organized this according to K-State structure. So we have here under subjects, we're listing departments, colleges in some cases, programs. So this should be familiar terms to help you discover what we have that might be more relevant to your area. The tags are things that are a variety of aspects of the books. Things like free, if you're interested in those free resources, free databases. We also have primary sources, ebooks. There's a number that may be useful as filtering mechanisms there too. I pulled up this slide because I want to illustrate that it's advantageous in many cases to go directly into a database and do your same search, and you'll get a different experience. And here is me going into ProQuest eBook Central, which is a huge database repository of ebooks. And I've done a search again for mitosis, and this time I got 3,470 book results. If you remember, when I did a book search, ebook search through Search It was something around the order of 300. And what's going on here? This is just one of our many ebook platforms. I've done the same search and I've gotten a scale of 10 times more. And that's because this is an illustration that Search It is just scraping from just the top level of metadata about items. When you go into a database, you are searching a richer set of metadata about those items. So you'll be able to dive more deeply. And when you find a resource, I want to make sure to emphasize that it's important to look at what opportunities there are for using this content. Most of the books that we have through ProQuest eBook Central are ones where we've licensed them so that you can use them in an unlimited fashion. So you could give the link to your students, and then any number of students can be accessing the book through the web at any time. Now, if you wanted to start reading it offline, downloading it, printing it, then you become more restricted in what you can do. And that's based on the publisher and the platform. But we are very intentional that we try to only pay for and license things that are available widely. Though there are some restrictions on that just because of finances and restrictions publishers place. So be looking carefully before you assume that all your students will be able to access resources freely. Make sure that that's actually the case. And Emily, again, is a great person to talk to about that. Just a few more things I want to say before I turn it back over to Emily, or to turn it over to Emily. We do have an ebook guide on our site that talks more about where you can find ebooks and how you can discover what the limitations and licenses might be on those. And I put the URL here. Also, I wanted to say that I hope none of you are scrambling to write down these URLs for a number of reasons. First, this is being recorded. You'll get the recording. Secondly, at the end, we pulled out a list of many of the important links for you. And we also have our contact information there as well. On that ebooks guide, there's a chart that tells you some of the major restrictions to be aware of for our major ebook platforms. Interlibrary loan. I am the head of the Library User Services Department, and Interlibrary Loan is a unit within that department. And I'm a huge advocate for Interlibrary Loan. I hope all of you are aware that it's there. And as someone else said earlier, we always struggle with trying to get the good news out about this service that we provide at no additional cost to anyone that's a K-State staff, student, or faculty member. It is a fantastic resource. If you go to the library's homepage, click services and click Interlibrary Loan, as I've done here, you can log in with your EID and password and put in a request for anything you want. Now, I want to be cautious here. I don't want to say that we'll definitely be able to get you anything you want. We'll do our best, but there are some limits. Like if you want what the Vatican Library has in your own hand, in your own house, that's probably not going to happen. Or if you want a really expensive resource that is licensed and protected very heavily, we may not be able to get that for you. But there's so much that we can get because we have partnerships with libraries all across the country, and libraries like to share their resources. And fortunately, law allows us to do that without getting ourselves into trouble. So it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And please encourage your students to use this. It's available to them. We want them to use it. And a lot do, but there's also a lot of times when they just aren't aware of it. We try to make that easier. We're working on ways to emphasize it as well. Whenever you do find a resource through our databases or through Search It, we encourage you to share it with your students. And the way we want you to do that is by putting a permalink into Search It. And sorry, I was just getting a phone call. I'm not sure. Inevitably, I get more phone calls when I'm doing Zoom sessions than any other time. Isn't that strange, Murphy's Law? We want you to put the permalinks inside your Canvas course so that when your students click on that link, they will be required to log in, unless they're already logged in through single sign-on, to prove that they are authorized users. And this also helps us keep track of how much a particular resource is used so that we will be able to make good decisions about which resources to retain and keep. And maybe we'll realize we need more of that particular type of resource. So it's very, very helpful for us if you share resources using permalinks. Please do it that way. Now, a question that always comes up is, what about if you scan content or you receive content through interlibrary loan, like an article that you've requested through interlibrary loan? Can you then share that with your students in any manner? And that gets tricky. It's very hard to give a flat answer to that because so much depends on what is the resource, how was it licensed, what are you trying to do with it, how much of it are you using? And that's why we hired the fabulous Emily Finch, because the campus community needs that kind of guidance, and she is really, really good at helping you think through those issues. And Ryan also is very good at that too. But there's so much work to do. We wanted to hire Emily to help him out with that kind of content. Couple more things, and I'll turn it over to Emily. Permalinks. We do have a LibGuide that talks more about permalinks, where to get them, what they look like. And then I will turn it over to Emily, and she will talk more about licensing and copyright.
Jason, do you want to take the 2 quick questions while I get set up here?
Oh, sure. Let me go and take a look at them. Okay, we've got. Okay, so why bother with Search It and just look in the database directory? That's an excellent question. And the main reason is so that you then don't to go into each individual database to discover what we have on a particular topic. It's a way to get a quick glance at how much there may be, what types of resources, and often you'll be able to, if you're just looking for a few things to meet your information need, it can be a quick way to do that. If you do want to make sure that you're doing an exhaustive search and finding everything on a topic or the best things, then we really recommend talking to a librarian if you're not sure which databases to use, and we will advise you on where it might be most fruitful to search. Or you can also use the subject drop down and look at what we've already curated and recommended for you. And that would be a great way. But that's an excellent question. ILL is the best part of the library. Yeah, they often get cakes and cookies, and so when I had the opportunity to have them come into my department, I was like, yes, they are loved. They do a great job. Kathy Coleman and her crew, they are amazing. My students need to ILL a paper. Would you rather get 20 ILL requests or 1 request, and that student shares the PDF with the class? That's a really interesting question, and let me think about that. Actually, Emily, what would you say to that? Because that's a good question.
Yeah. Traditionally, ILL kind of operates as close to a 1-to-1 as possible. At that point, my recommendation might be, if it's a resource that's needed for that class in particular, we look at other venues with your subject librarian to make that resource available for campus if it's something that's needed in that demand. If it's by chance 20 students are somehow picking the same research topic, there's probably a little bit more movement. But if it's something that it looks like that many, it might be required for the class. I wouldn't recommend, especially a student, downloading that and sharing it. Cloaked in layers of ambiguity, but that's my job here.
Yeah, Emily's point is really good, and in that kind of case, we would recommend that you talk to our subject librarians, and at the end, the part that Adriana was going to do, which I will do, is showing you how to get in contact with your librarian and some other information about what services they provide. And we could talk about maybe purchasing a license to whatever article that is, so that we can legally have that shared with the class. That would probably be the best way to proceed in that case. And let's see, okay. And Elizabeth Dodd, there's a cost per article through ILL. That's an interesting situation. It depends a lot on how old the article is. In general, the interlibrary loan community treats it such that if the article is older than 5 years from a journal, that they share it freely with one another. And if it's from a art journal issue that's more recent than 5 years, then we keep very close track of how much we're requesting from that particular journal. And for 5 requests from that journal within the last 5 years, I think it's 5, we don't have to pay copyright fees. But once we use more than 5 requests from that journal within a certain time period, then we start paying copyright to the Copyright Clearance Center. And it's that the copyright cost varies a lot per article, depends on which publishing platform, things like $35, $50. But the library subsidizes that. You don't have to worry about paying that. And we will do that for you. But that's a good point. But it is complicated as to what the cost will be. It depends so much on which platform, how old it is, how many times we as a library have put in a request for that particular journal title in the last year or so. It's cheaper to put in 20 ILL requests. Yeah, maybe. If it depends on which journal it's from. If it's from a journal that charges like $50 every time we pay the Copyright Clearance Center, the first 5 might be free, but then we'd pay 15 times 50, $750. And maybe we could figure out how to license access to that single article, get a library or institutional wide license for that per article or per issue. It would depend a lot on what the publisher is, but hopefully we'd be able to negotiate a slightly cheaper rate. But you're right, there are some situations where the costs don't work out in what anybody would conceive as a logical manner. But it is a case-by-case basis. But please talk to us, and we will help provide guidance about what the best case might be, best way to make sure you're not violating the law, and the most economical and quick methods for accessing the resources. Yeah, we are very, very, very careful not to pass the cost down. We do not want to do that. People are already paying enough money through tuition and taxes. Then we subsidize those costs from the library's budget for the copyright costs that are involved in obtaining resources from a library loan. And by subsidize, I mean we completely pay for those costs so that nothing gets passed directly down to faculty, staff, or students. Okay, we'll turn it over to Emily. And please know as well, if you have other questions that we don't have time to address here today, we welcome you. We delight in answering and helping you. That's why we're librarians. We really like this kind of work. So do not hesitate ever to reach out to us.
Okay. I think can everyone hear me and see me?
Oh, I think I'm still sharing my screen. Sorry about that. So can you go ahead and reshare your screen, Emily?
Absolutely.
There we go.
All right. So hi, I'm Emily Finch, and I'm very excited to be the new-ish scholarly communication and copyright librarian here in the Center for the Advancement of Digital Scholarship. So off the bat, I want to share two resources really quickly, and the first is the copyright section of our website, which is full of resources on use, fair use, and ownership of scholarly output. And then also our LibGuide pictured here. We're working on going through and updating, and if you see something that doesn't make sense, please feel free to reach out and we can point you in the right direction. So I'm going to provide a very quick and in no way comprehensive overview, kind of on the foundations of copyright. So copyright law is codified in Title 17 of the US Code. Its aim has always been, it's a constitutional aim, to encourage the creation of art and culture by rewarding authors and artists with a set of exclusive rights. First and foremost, it's important to note that copyright is automatic. So when a work is original and in a tangible format and has a level of creativity, when it's created and meets those requirements, it has copyright. Registering your works formally with the US Copyright Office and getting that formal registration can provide additional legal strength. But regardless, upon the creation of the item, copyright lies with its owner. And that bundle of exclusive rights, which I'll get into later, reside with the owner. So a little bit on what's protected. Everything from literature, music, photography, to film, computer code, those can all be copyrighted as long as, again, they meet the kind of three core components, that they are original, that they're creative, and that they're fixed in that tangible medium of expression. It's important to note that facts, data, not copyrightable, although a compilation of facts may be when the choices as to the selection and arrangement of the collected data or facts are. And it's important to note that comes into play only when they're made independently by the compiler and entail a minimal degree of creative arrangement. So that means even like AI-generated organization won't have that copyright because it's not independent. It doesn't meet that necessary degree of creative arrangement. So just to clarify, raw data sets, not copyrightable, but your depictions and compilations of said data may be. So I'm doing this great case study because I think it really touches on the building of OERs and the use of OERs. So looking at this chocolate fudge recipe, I'm asking what elements on the cookbook page below or on the side are covered by copyright. And normally we would do kind of a Q&A session, but for the sake of time, we'll work through this together. So why is this analogous? When building OER resources or OER-based courses, you are often putting together existing resources to create your ideal resource. So maybe the OpenStax biology book works great for your class. Maybe if you don't like the order or you want to add some of your own labs, or you have a different section on invertebrate zoology and biology that you want to add. You're piecing together these things and creating kind of an amalgamation of different resources that suit your needs. So on this page, there's some copyrightable and non-copyrightable content, or perceivably so. So the recipe itself, facts. That's just a list of ingredients and measurements. So that part would not be copyrightable. The text could be copyrightable. I could argue a certain level of creativity, its original, tangible form. Certainly if you had written about how this was your favorite chocolate fudge during Christmas time and you got the recipe from your grandma who used to buy special cocoa powder at the market down the street, that narrative's copyrightable. And then certainly some of these photos, if you took them, copyrightable. So working with OERs, you're looking to kind of create a blend and ensure the use, reuse, and copyright protection of a number of different things, some copyrightable and some not. So you might have proprietary data and that wouldn't be copyrightable. You might have your own text, you might have someone else's text, and those are all going to have different licenses. So it's important, and feel free to reach out as always if you have questions about how to license the end product in agreement with the license that currently exists. It's just my favorite case study because it really kind of touches on a lot of what Ryan touched on earlier, and it's just really analogous to building your own resource to fit your needs. So moving forward, a little bit Ryan touched on, but the overall framework of U.S. copyright, I think it's important to note copyright and licenses are two separate realms that sometimes overlap. So a license is a contract, and that contract in the eyes of copyright law allows you to transfer the original bundle of rights given to the copyright owner. So licenses allow creators to give permission and potential users the ability to use, reuse, transform the creative work through permissions. So when working with a resource or building a resource or looking at your own copyright protection, you need to look at, does the work you're looking to use or reuse have copyright protection? It could be in the public domain. Does it have an existing license that may cover or dictate your use of it? Then that'll shape that. Can you rely on an exemption such as fair use? And then if you can or can't use fair use, do you need permission or to purchase a license to the material? So those are kind of the 4 key questions you need to ask yourself. So a little bit on fair use that I just mentioned. What is fair use? Fair use is inherently a right, so it is protected and codified in law. It's not some lovely thing that you'll see me throw around. It's not like a special trick. It's your right. And it's a 4-factor tool that allows scholars and individuals to evaluate their uses of material. And it's broken down into kind of 4 prongs. In court, all are weighted differently based on a case-by-case basis, so it's important you really consider each. None has a higher or consistently higher burden than any of the others. So it's the purpose and character of your use, the nature of the copyright work itself, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and then the effect of the use upon potential market or the value of the copyrighted work. So, who holds the copyright? Have they already made any licenses that would permit your use? So the first holder of the copyright is the original author, the creator of the work, or in some cases, if it was made under work for hire, an institution or a place of work. The license, again, is a contract that allows you to transfer that bundle of rights. Sorry, I'm totally turned around here. So I said I'd mention a little bit more what I meant by the bundle of rights. So the exclusive rights that Ryan mentioned earlier is this bundle I'm referring to, and those are to reproduce the work and copy, to prepare derivative works, to distribute copies, to perform the copyrighted work publicly, and then to display the copyrighted work publicly. So these are the exclusive rights, and authors can transfer or license any of these rights. Kind of a key question and component of that, does transferring the physical object transfer copyright in that object? And the answer to that is no. So physical object, no. Whether it's in a will, in a formal license to an institution, to a journal, to a publisher, to a friend, to a colleague, the license itself is what's needed to transfer the copyright in an object. So as Ryan already kind of showcased, in copyright, all rights reserved means that all rights are reserved for the creator. And Creative Commons, which are a public license, allow the bundle of exclusive rights to be broken down and licensed accordingly in a some rights reserved form. So the copyright still inherently lies with the author, but using Creative Commons or another license, you can license away certain aspects of the copyrighted work. So a little bit about kind of what the license you see through Creative Commons mean. There's 4 components: attribution, derivative works, share alike, and then commercial. So attribution means that you can distribute, remix, tweak, and build upon someone else's work. But they just require that you give them credit, and that can take many forms of just traditional scholarly best practices. The derivative means that you can use all or part of the content. Derivative works would mean that you're allowed to perform and distribute and make copies. No derivatives, or ND, would mean that you can use the content, but you can't make changes to it and you can't reshare it. Share alike, which would allow others to distribute your work, but only if they reshare that work and the edits they make under the same share alike license. And then commercial, so you can either choose to allow commercial reuse and edits to be used commercially or non-commercially. And then really quick, as I wrap up, again, not everything, it's hard to believe after all this, has a copyright on it. Some work may be in the public domain. Looking at dates is your best way to guess public domain. I can point you to a number of resources on our website that will help you do calculations for things that may not have the copyright mark, or maybe a little bit more ambiguous, maybe international. Creative Commons just launched a public domain mark that some people are using to automatically put their works in the public domain, and then the CC0, that's the CC0. You waive all rights and you put it in the public domain. They also launched a mark that just designates public domain. So if it's already free, you can put that on it to make it more clear. In the US, generally, if a work was first published in the US, 1924 or earlier, it's in the public domain. Or if something published by the US government, it's probably in the public domain. So things like NASA space videos and images. And just a reminder, works in the public domain are free of copyright and have no restrictions, although it's always good practice to give attribution. That's all I have. I will give it back to Jason. Please, again, feel free to reach out to the CAD's email if you have any questions on copyright licensing. I would be more than happy to help. And maybe were there some questions? When students give each other materials and exams, how does copyright come into play? Really good question. Is the concern over the copyright from the person who created the exam? If so, tricky. They're either violating your copyright or K-State's copyright over the material, depending on.
Yeah, depending on the
conditions.
Yeah, because you know, a lot of work goes into exams, and then when students share exams, and you're having to from semester to semester, and then also just some of the materials that you kind of want to build up on, and you don't want everything all available all at once, and they've downloaded everything and have notes and then hand it over to another student. To me, I don't know if it's a copyright thing or just an ethical thing of just kind of making it very unfair for students who don't have friends.
Yeah, so law and ethics, I've sat in more lectures than I care to to remember on the difference between law and ethics and the fact that they overlap on everything. And that really is a dangerous mix of law and ethics. It does hurt the institution and the professor that put the hours into creating the exam. They aren't distributed fairly. I've been on student panels where this has happened, and students have tried to claim fair use. At my undergrad, and before I was a copyright person, I thought that was strange, and it's one of the things that made me really dig into copyright and led me here. Yeah, I think the ramifications there are going to be more reflected in the honor code. And that said, I've seen faculty push to license their exams. so that if they are reused, there's attribution. Of course, the reuse here is, again, more ethical than legal. I mean, it's possible that for your course, you're concerned about the legal reuse and use of your exam by other institutions. In that case, that would be a legal ramification. But if it's just inequity and you're sharing an exam, answers to an exam, more ethical. I mean, that said, if you want to look at licensing your exams, I'd be happy to dig into that with you, but yeah. A lovely wormhole that's become an increasing problem in all of the boards that I participate in, and especially with COVID and the new digital climate and how much easier it is to do that. If you're interested, I'm meeting with like 100 people in similar positions with mine, and that's actually on our docket for our discussion next week, and I would be happy to share back if anything substantial comes out of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I hope you've seen one of the things when we were putting this together, we're like, we have so much we want to say. we do. There's so much. Wow, it was really hard for me. I usually go into an entire hour on the things that I covered in 3 minutes. And I know that it's the same with Ryan and Emily. We're packing a lot of content and just kind of hitting the highlights here. So the really essential, one of the key takeaways is please talk to us. We have so much we want to share. We want to help you. That's our jobs. That's our role. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. And here we've listed the email addresses and names of some of our key folks in the academic services department. There's other departments, and all of us are happy to help you, but for our structure is that for each department on campus, we have a kind of a team lead and a team that is meant to serve the academic and research needs, or to be the primary contact for that. So start with them, and then they can pull in others as depending on what your situation is. And we do encourage you to reach out broadly to us. So this is a list, and this is also on our website too, and I'll show you how to get to that in a second. Well, actually right here, you have a link here, and you can search our site as well by the word contacts, and this page will come up, and you can find out who for your particular department we recommend starting out with. We also have a general contact page, which is our Ask a Librarian page, and this will go to the services that my team in library user services, as well as many academic services librarians help us staff. You can chat with us directly, call us, text us. You can set up appointments. You can email us. You can set up peer consultations where your students can do that, where they can meet with and talk to another highly trained library student. So we want to make it convenient, give you flexibility on how to get a hold of advice and help. We do also do a offline, putting our brains on the web is sort of a goal. And you can go to our homepage, click research guides, which we've highlighted on this slide, and you'll get into a number of LibGuides that we've created that give you advice and tips about where to find particular types of information and strategies to be effective. And we've got a lot of these, and we'll be building more over time too. We've organized these by department as well. We also want to emphasize that we are delighted to have our librarians and come and talk to your classes directly. We can also help you create content, give you advice on what to use, and we can present in your classes too. So if you would like that, feel free to reach out to us. We do have a web page here that you can go to and request a librarian to come into your class, or a team of librarians, and we will work with you on what will meet your needs. Then at the end here, we do, as I said, we pulled out a number of key links that we've mentioned throughout the session. And on the very last slide on the deck is our particular email addresses and ways to get in contact with us. And please do not hesitate to do that. That's my favorite part of the job, is working with and helping faculty, staff, and students directly. And I talking to my other colleagues, that's their favorite part of the job too. So with that, we will wrap it up. We really, really appreciate your time and attention, and hope everybody's doing well. Wish you a good summer. Let me see if there's any last questions before we bid you adieu.
I think we're good on the questions. We'll certainly talk about this more in the class when we post the recording. So thank you all so much for being here again. We really appreciate you doing these lives so that people can ask their questions. And it's neat to see how the questions go in different directions each time we do that. So thank you
Yeah.
all so much. We really appreciate your help. And thank you to everyone who attended. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.